painting by her ex up in her apartment. Hello, everyone. Thank you for taking a moment to listen to my story and hopefully help me gain some clarity on a situation that has been on my mind for quite some time. I realize that from the outside looking in, it might appear as though I'm just another possessive person who can't separate the artist from the art. Or, as some folks like to say, can't separate the ex from the painting that remains in my girlfriend's apartment. I promise, that's not who I am. I'm genuinely trying to navigate what I believe to be a rather delicate and emotional situation. This painting has a backstory that influences the way I feel about it. And part of me worries I might be overreacting or even verging on the irrational. On the other hand, there's a part of me that feels entirely justified in asking my girlfriend to remove or at least downplay a piece of artwork that I know was created by a person who once hurt her. It's a balancing act between respecting her taste in art, acknowledging her history, and making sure my own feelings are taken into account. To provide some context, my girlfriend, she's 23 years old, keeps a painting in her apartment that was done by her ex-boyfriend. The story of their relationship is quite complicated, and I've had to piece together bits and pieces from what she's told me and from what I've gathered on my own. This ex, from what I understand, had a significant impact on her life in a relatively short period of time. They only dated for about 6 months, but it sounds like she was completely enthralled by him, maybe even obsessed. In the end, he was the one who decided to end their relationship, and it left her in a pretty vulnerable place. After they broke up, there was some back and forth, almost like a short-lived attempt at reconciliation, but that also fizzled out. It's my understanding that this ex moved on with someone else, and that was that. Sometimes I wonder if the painting represents a vestige of her unfulfilled hopes regarding that relationship, or if it's simply an original piece of art she wants to keep because it looks cool on her wall. It's hard to discern the truth because, as open as my girlfriend is about most things, she can be a bit guarded when it comes to these emotional remnants of the past, especially objects created by this person. Let me stress that I'm not against art in general. In fact, I appreciate art quite a bit. I love going to galleries, museums, and exploring interesting pieces whenever I can. I even joked once that I can separate art from the artist as easily as I can keep listening to Kanye West's music without necessarily loving everything about Kanye himself. So, trust me, I do get that you can appreciate a creation, even if you're not a fan of the person behind it. However, there's a difference here. This painting wasn't just purchased at a flea market or discovered in a local gallery. It was personally made by an ex-boyfriend who left her in emotional shambles. That's an entirely different dynamic because of the memories and sentiment attached to it. My girlfriend, for her part, has lugged this painting around for years, across at least 2 or 3 different apartments. That shows a certain commitment to this piece, or at least a reluctance to let go of it. And that's what makes me uneasy. Every time she moves, this painting presumably gets taken off the wall, carefully packed, and hung up in the new place. That's not something one does casually. At the very least, it signifies that she places enough value on it to treat it with care. When I first visited her apartment, I noticed the painting hung directly above her bed. It wasn't super big, but it was definitely large enough to catch my eye the moment I walked into the room. It had some swirls of color that might have been interesting, but since I knew who painted it, I'll admit I felt an immediate sense of discomfort. Maybe it's jealousy, or maybe it's just the knowledge that a part of her is still cherishing something created by the guy who hurt her so deeply. I told her that having it above her bed bothered me. To her credit, she was understanding. She took it down from the bedroom wall and moved it to her living room. I thanked her, and at the time, it felt like a reasonable compromise. I thought I could live with that arrangement. Still, every time I walk into her living room, that painting catches my eye. I wish it didn't, but it does. And it's a reminder of their history together. I know I should be able to look at it as just a piece of art, but my mind won't let me. It's like I have this mental block. I see it, and I think that's the painting done by the one who broke her heart, by the one she used to be obsessed with. Maybe it's a flaw in me, but it's there, and I don't want to ignore it. After all, ignoring something rarely makes it go away. At one point, my girlfriend referred to it in conversation as his painting. It was a reflexive slip, but it struck me. Instead of calling it the painting in my living room or the piece of art above the couch, she specifically identified it by its creator. That's what really got under my skin, more so than seeing it on the wall. I started to wonder how much of this painting's presence in our daily lives is tied to who made it. Is it merely the presence of original art, or is it a quiet tribute to a guy who left her feeling broken? Then she decided she wanted to place it in a nice frame. I have nothing against framing art. On the contrary, I think it's a wonderful way to preserve and enhance a piece. But it stung that she made this decision to highlight it more prominently after I'd already explained how uncomfortable it makes me. Framing something is, in a sense, elevating it. It takes a piece of art that might otherwise blend into the wall and turns it into a focal point. It's like saying, this is so important or beautiful that it needs special treatment. I felt that her timing was off, or maybe it was just inconsiderate. We had a conversation about how it bothered me. She moved it out of the bedroom, and I thought we might eventually reach a place where the painting could be tucked away or replaced. Instead, she's framing it. That's what left me feeling like my concerns were not really taken into account. And yet, I do love her, and I'm not trying to give her an ultimatum, nor do I want to act like some controlling boyfriend who says, get rid of that painting or else. It's more nuanced. I respect her autonomy, her sense of style, and her appreciation for art in general. But I also think there's something to be said for respecting your partner's feelings, especially when it comes to mementos from ex-partners that carry emotional weight. I should mention that she and I have had discussions before about exes. She's asked me to make some changes in my online life, things like removing photos with past partners or perhaps untagging them on social media, that kind of thing. I've complied without hesitation, not because I feel I have to, but because I recognize that these small acts can mean a lot in building trust in a new relationship. If it bothers her to see pictures of me with old flames, I'm happy to take those down or limit visibility. Though, coming from that perspective, I can't help but wonder if my discomfort with this painting is equally valid. It's not that I'm raging around the house, demanding she tear it to shreds and burn the canvas. I just wish that on her own she might decide it's not worth causing me stress or stirring up memories of a complicated time in her life. I'm still not sure if I'm being unfair or overly sensitive, though I guess that's why I'm pouring this all out. Part of me hopes that by speaking these words I can figure out if I'm off base or if my concerns are legitimate. Relationships, after all, are about communication, empathy, and understanding. From my standpoint, I feel like it's natural to wonder why she holds on to an ex's creation, especially when that ex was someone she described as having a massive emotional impact on her. If the ex had just been some short-term fling with no real significance, maybe I wouldn't care so much. But from everything I've gathered, this was a man she was fixated on, and he's one of the few exes whose name still resonates in her mind. That alone is enough to make me uneasy. At the same time, logic and empathy tell me that maybe, just maybe, she likes the painting purely because it's a decent piece of art from her point of view. There's also a chance that she's the type of person who doesn't see the point in discarding or hiding something just because it's from an ex. Perhaps she truly believes that if a piece of art is meaningful or visually appealing, it can transcend the baggage of who made it or how it came into her possession. And if that's her genuine stance, who am I to force her to conform to my perspective? The crucial part of all this is that I don't want it to become a lingering point of tension or resentment in our relationship. I don't want to wake up one morning, see that painting, and feel that twinge of negativity creeping up, turning into bitterness. I also don't want to keep silent and let frustration build up inside me. That's unhealthy for both of us. We've talked about it somewhat, but I admit that I still harbor unresolved feelings about the situation. Telling this story is a way of seeking advice, or at least sharing my thought process so that others in similar situations might reflect on how they handled it. I've also considered the possibility that my discomfort stems from my own insecurity. I'm aware that jealousy can rear its head in sneaky ways. Am I worried that, on some subconscious level, she still pines for him? Do I fear that she is secretly cherishing a memory that might overshadow the relationship we have now? Logically, I know there's no real reason to suspect any ongoing contact or any lingering romantic feelings. As she's told me, they've blocked each other on social media, and there's absolutely no communication. She's made it clear that she's moved on in every way that matters, except for letting go of this canvas. We have a strong, caring partnership otherwise. We share interests, values, and future goals. She's loving, supportive, and creative. I admire that about her. This sense of creativity and openness to the artistic side of life is part of what drew me to her in the first place. So maybe I'm trying to reconcile that admiration with the frustration I feel. After all, it's easy to appreciate someone's love of art until it starts to conflict with your own peace of mind. One thing that's worth noting is that we haven't yet tried to find alternative solutions. For instance, maybe she could hang the painting in a less obvious spot, somewhere not in plain view, or even store it for a while. Maybe she could keep it in a closet or in some dedicated storage space, so it's not the first thing anyone sees upon entering her living room. We haven't had a deeply open-ended conversation about that possibility. When I asked her to move it out of the bedroom, she simply put it in the living room. Maybe it's on me to calmly bring up the subject again and suggest a compromise that doesn't force her to give it up entirely, but still respects my feelings. But part of me also wonders, is it really about where it's hanging, or is it about the fact that it's still present at all? Sometimes I think that even if she hid it in a closet, I'd still know it was there, and that knowledge might continue to bother me. Maybe the underlying question is whether she's truly moved on emotionally. On a logical level, everything she says indicates she has. Emotionally, though, objects can keep a certain hold on us, especially ones tied to intense or formative experiences. When we talk about the ex, it's usually matter-of-fact, not with yearning or sadness. She doesn't sing his praises or talk about what might have been no. She often says he was immature, that he didn't treat her well, that she looks back on that time as a learning experience. Despite that, the painting remains, and so do my concerns. In the realm of relationships, many people have keepsakes. An old sweatshirt, a teddy bear, or love letters from years past. But a painting is different, because it's so visible. It's not tucked away in a box. It's out in the open for everyone to see. And it's not just a mass-produced poster or a t-shirt. It's a handcrafted expression of creativity by someone who once played a significant role in her life. It's personal on a level that triggers a different emotional response compared to a random decorative item from a store. She asked me once why it really bothers me. She said, "If you love me and you know that I'm not interested in him anymore, why does it matter?" I tried to explain that it's not a matter of me doubting her love or her commitment to me. It's that the painting feels like a totem or a symbol of a past entanglement that left her wounded. And ironically, that painting probably sparked some intense memories for her at one point. The same intense feelings that now unnerve me. So it's both a symbol of her pain and a memory of a time when she was fixated on this guy. Knowing that she wants to give it a place of honor in her home feels like a subtle nod to him. Even if that's not her intention, it's hard to shake that impression. At the same time, I worry that asking her to put it away might be an overreach, especially if the painting genuinely speaks to her on an aesthetic level. Art can be powerful, and sometimes the meaning of a piece goes beyond who created it. Perhaps it's also a demonstration of her ability to rise above the negativity. Maybe she likes having it as a reminder that she survived that heartbreak, that she's a stronger person now than she was then. We haven't fully unpacked that possibility either. The bottom line is that this isn't some petty spat over a piece of furniture or a trivial decoration. This is about the emotional undercurrent of an object that's tied to a very significant and painful part of her past. It affects me because I care about her deeply, and I want to know that we're both making efforts to shape our shared space in a way that respects and nurtures both of our emotional needs. I do realize relationships require compromise, patience, and mutual understanding. And so I find myself here, sharing these details to see if others might relate or offer insights. Maybe someone out there has faced a similar conundrum. An ex's painting, photograph, or some other symbol that stirs old memories. I'm not out to say she can never keep anything from past relationships. I understand that everyone has a history, and objects sometimes come along for the ride. But given the intensity of their relationship, it stands out to me more than, say, if this painting were from a casual fling that didn't leave emotional scars. The fact that he caused her so much distress and heartbreak makes me question why she would want to keep any reminders of him at all. On my side, I want to be both respectful and honest. I don't want to hide my feelings because that's not healthy. But I also don't want to be the stereotypical boyfriend who insists that anything from an ex must be exorcised from the premises like some kind of demon. This leads me to wonder about the broader issues of boundaries, respect, and emotional well-being in relationships. It's entirely possible that she feels this painting has nothing to do with her ex as a person anymore. It might merely be a piece of art she admires, and yet I can't unknow its origin. I can't separate it from the man who created it, especially because she herself, in unguarded moments, refers to it as his painting. And if she can't even rename it something neutral like the abstract swirl painting, it suggests it still holds some personal significance tied to him. Let me be clear, I don't doubt her love for me. She is affectionate, considerate in many ways, and we communicate well about most topics. She's never given me any reason to suspect she's pining for him. The fact that they have no contact and that each of them is blocked on each other's accounts is some reassurance. But physical reminders can sometimes be even more powerful than an old text message or an unblocked number. They're tangible items that can spark memories, either conscious or subconscious. Interestingly, some of my friends have chimed in when I've confided in them about the situation. A couple of them say, "Dude, you're overreacting. If she likes the painting, let her keep it. You can't control her." I get that stance. Another friend says, "If it really bothers you, you should say so. Maybe you can replace it with a piece of art you get for her as a gifter. That way, there's a new piece that's equally special but also free from any baggage." That's an intriguing idea. What if I found something truly striking? Something that resonates with her aesthetic taste, but is untainted by an ex's involvement. Perhaps that could gradually become her new favorite piece to display proudly in the living room. There's also the approach of telling her more thoroughly how it makes me feel. Not just that it bothers me, but that it triggers insecurities about our relationship and dredges up the knowledge of how intensely she once felt about this man. Because let's face it, nobody wants to feel like they're playing second fiddle to an old flame, even if that flame has long since burned out. It's not about winning some comparison contest. It's about emotional reassurance. If she truly hears me out, maybe she'll realize it's more serious than just an aesthetic opinion. Maybe it's not just, "I don't like the color scheme." It's, "This painting is an emotional landmine I stumble over every time I see it." Another angle, of course, is that if we keep talking about it, might it place undue pressure on her? Could she interpret my concerns as an ultimatum or a guilt trip? That's the last thing I want. This is a delicate subject, and I need to tread carefully. We should be able to have open, honest conversations about how the presence of that painting affects me, balanced with how important, or unimportant, it is to her. Maybe in the end we discover that she's not as attached to it as I fear. Or maybe we find out that, yes, she really, truly loves it, but not because of him. Understanding that difference could make all the difference in the world. Let me circle back to the moment I thanked her for moving the painting out of the bedroom. That was a small victory, but it demonstrated that she was willing to compromise. For me, having it out of the bedroom made a big difference because that's our shared, intimate space. I feel that in our bedroom, everything should be about us. The pictures on the dresser, the vibe, the energy. The living room, being more public, might be a better spot for it if it has to be displayed. But it was still jarring when she decided to frame it, elevating it to something you might see in a curated home gallery. For a few weeks, I tried to let it go. I reasoned with myself, okay, it's not in the bedroom anymore, so maybe I can handle seeing it in the living room. Unfortunately, the sense of unease never fully went away. Part of me is still grappling with how to approach it, hence this long exploration of the topic. Writing and talking it through is helping me articulate the layers of emotion here. Jealousy, protectiveness, concern, love, and respect for her autonomy. So, why am I sharing this? Well, firstly, I just needed a space to work through my thoughts comprehensively. Secondly, if anyone else is going through something like this, maybe they'll see that they're not alone. It's a fairly specific scenario, an ex-created painting, but the underlying feelings can apply to many relationship scenarios where objects or reminders of past partners remain in someone's life. I imagine some people keep love letters, poems, or handcrafted gifts. Some keep them in a box. Some display them openly. The key question is always, does the partner feel comfortable with that? Or does it make them uneasy? I'm leaning toward having another calm conversation with her. I don't want to ambush her or make this an argument. Maybe over a quiet evening at home, or during a relaxed conversation, I can say something like, "I appreciate that you moved the painting out of the bedroom when I told you how I felt. That was thoughtful. But lately I've been noticing how much it still affects me emotionally. I want to talk to you about finding a solution that respects us both." Then I can open the floor to hearing her perspective. I'd love to know the deep down reason she keeps it. Is it nostalgia, a sense of closure, or purely aesthetic? At the same time, I need to be prepared for the possibility that she might see this as me not trusting her judgment, or not trusting her emotional independence. That's where I have to reassure her that it's not about control. It's about me wanting to feel comfortable in our shared space. There's a difference between trying to police her environment and asking for understanding about a sensitive issue. If she meets me halfway, perhaps we can store the painting somewhere less prominent or replace it with a piece of equal beauty, but without the emotional underpinnings. If she's adamant about keeping it exactly where it is, then we might have to dig deeper to find the real source of her attachment. Also, I might consider exploring my own feelings independently, maybe with a trusted friend or by journaling about it, or even chatting with a therapist. if I think my reactions are overshadowing an otherwise healthy relationship. Sometimes an outside perspective can reveal that the real issue isn't the painting at all, but something else in the relationship or in my own sense of security. But from what I can tell, this is the only significant issue that has caused me such continued discomfort. It hasn't escalated into daily fights or toxic arguments. It's more like a gentle pulse in the back of my mind that flares up when I see that painting. I don't want to let it build up to a point where it causes a blowout. That's why I'm trying to address it proactively. I also recognize that some people might say, just let it go, man. It's just a painting. But to me, it's not just a painting. It's a symbol, a tangible reminder of an ex who once caused her, and by extension, now me, emotional distress. Whether or not that's fair is debatable, but it's how I feel. In the end, communication is key. We have to find a balance between her love of art, her memories, and my sense of comfort in our shared living space. If the painting truly is just a painting to her, she might be open to finding a new home for it, or at least making it less of a focal point. If the painting holds deeper meaning, then maybe understanding that meaning will help me cope better with its presence. For now, I'm cautiously optimistic. We've tackled other issues in our relationship with honesty and compassion, so there's no reason to believe we can handle this one. She knows I'm not a controlling, possessive jerk, and I'm confident enough in myself to know that the root of my concern is not an irrational jealousy, but rather a desire to ensure that the space we share is free of reminders of painful chapters in her past. I want our environment to feel like a reflection of the future we're building together, not the heartbreaks behind us. Sometimes the best path forward is just speaking one's truth. That's why I'm sharing this now, spelling it out in a way that's hopefully easy to understand and empathize with. I'm not perfect. I have my insecurities, but I'm also willing to listen, to compromise, and to see things from her point of view. I'm hoping that by opening up about how the painting makes me feel, and being open to what she has to say, we can navigate toward a solution that leaves both of us feeling respected and heard. I also remind myself, they have no contact. They blocked each other on social media long ago. She is with me now, and she's happy. She's committed, and we're making plans for the future. That's reality. The painting is just an artifact from a tumultuous past. If it can remain in her life without rekindling old emotions or causing new friction, maybe that's fine. But if it's an obstacle or a silent wedge between us, then it's time we address it fully. In conclusion, I'd love to hear the thoughts of others who might have lived through a similar scenario. Perhaps you've had a partner who kept something that made you uncomfortable, or maybe you were the one keeping a memento of an ex, and your new partner wasn't okay with it. How did you resolve it? What compromises or conversations helped you move past the issue? Relationships thrive on communication and mutual respect, and sometimes a single painting, or any token from a past relationship, can serve as a pivotal point for deeper understanding and growth. For me, the immediate question remains, is it unfair that I wish she'd just pack up the painting and say, I don't need this anymore, because you're my present and my future? Or is it possible that my request steps over a boundary? I guess the only way to find out is through honest, kind communication. At the very least, thanks for listening to this extended reflection of mine. It's a complicated blend of feelings, love, trust, annoyance, understanding, and a hint of jealousy. But all these feelings are part of caring deeply for someone. If I didn't love her, I wouldn't care at all about a silly piece of canvas and paint. So as I move forward, I'll keep that in mind. Sometimes the intensity of our reactions can remind us how much we value the person we're with now. If we channel that in the right way, through patience, understanding, and conversation, it can bring us closer together rather than tearing us apart. Here's hoping we find that middle ground. Until then, I'm going to keep reminding myself that love requires empathy and self-awareness from both partners. And if there's one thing I've learned from all this soul-searching, it's that I care enough about her, and about us, to see this through with compassion, respect, and honesty. Thank you again for taking the time to listen. If you've had an experience like this or want to share any advice, I'm all ears. I'll be sure to keep an open mind and an open heart, because in the end, that's what relationships are all about.